Hey everybody, it's Nate here, coming in with an update, a Melton update. For anybody that's new, um, just watching for the first time, I'm a new truck driver. I just got my CDL a few months ago, and Melton Truck Lines is the company that I decided after extensive research. They're the company that I decided to go for, hauling flatbed. And now I've been in my own truck. Coming towards the end of week number 5. I spent a couple weeks in a training truck. I started with orientation in January, and then I went to a training truck, and then 5 weeks ago I got in this truck. Um, the averages. First of all, I want to talk about miles. In 5 weeks, my 5 week average, weekly average, is 2,253 miles a week, which is right where they said the fleet average would be. So it's right where I wanted to be. Now, the first 2 weeks were not great weeks. Some of it was beyond my control. Some of it, I think, was because securing was taking me a long time. Maybe I wasn't managing my clock as good as I could have been. If you take away those first 2 weeks and calculate the average for the last 3, in the last 3 weeks I've been averaging 2,624 miles, which is good. It's above average. 2,624 miles. My best week was 3,151 miles. That was 3 weeks ago. And then I've had 2,400, 2,300. We'll see if it continues. I hope it does. So as far as that goes, I'm happy with the miles I'm getting. Now, I want to talk about what I believe is the number one ingredient to success. In success, I mean getting miles. Because Melton says it. They said, they'll offer you the miles, but you got to do your part, and it takes intelligent trip planning and making the right decisions. And there's a lot involved in that, but what I believe is the number one most important ingredient is managing your 14-hour clock. And I won't get into all the different clocks, 70, 14, 8, 11. But just to simplify, your 14-hour clock is, for those of you that aren't familiar with it or that are new, when you start your day and you go on duty, that starts a clock. The clock starts ticking, and you have 14 hours from that point to get everything done, to get your driving done. If you start at 8 a.m., go on duty, by 10 p.m. that night, you've got to be parked. So here's the key. With all your planning and everything and where you're going to stop, the number one most important decision you make is where you're going to land the night before your delivery. Okay? We're hauling flatbed from Melton. We're delivering all over the country. A lot of the deliveries are on Monday morning. Some of them are on Wednesday. Some are on Friday. A lot of them are on Friday or Monday. I want to be as close to the delivery point as I can get. And if they have overnight parking, that's the ideal scenario. I'm going to plan my trip so I can get there and park at their facility the night before. Now, a lot of these places don't have overnight parking, in which case I'm looking at truck stops, Walmarts, rest areas, any place I can park that is the closest spot to the delivery point. How does that connect to your 14-hour clock? A lot of you have already figured it out, but let me just explain. If you're as close as you can get, and let's take the best case scenario, you're able to park at the facility where you're delivering the night before. So say that your appointment's for 10 a.m., or say you've called them and they say, well, the earliest we can unload you is 10 o'clock because we got 2 other trucks. Well, because you're already there, you don't have to go on duty until you're ready to be unloaded. Now, if you're parked 100 miles down the road, you got to go on duty to drive those 100 miles. And then you get there, and then you might sit for a couple hours before they can even start to unload you. So you've already driven 2 hours, and you sit for 2 more before they start to unload you. You've already burned up 4 out of your 14 hours. Do you get my point? You want to start that 14-hour clock on your delivery day as late as you possibly can start it, so that once you get unloaded, you can send in your empty call and have as the maximum amount of time left to get another load, go pick it up, and start driving down the road and get to a parking spot for that night and get your next trip started. Okay? It seems simple. To me, it's simple, and probably most of you guys that are experienced are like, duh, we know that. I'm sure most of you do, but I don't think everyone has figured that out, because I've talked to a lot of guys that are complaining they're not getting the miles, and then I ask them about, where they're stopping and whatnot, and some of these guys that are complaining about miles are shutting down the night before 300 miles from their delivery, or 200 miles or whatever, when they do, but they could get closer. But they say, well, I'm running my recap and I got plenty of hours and I like to get up early, so I'm just going to, the day of the delivery, I'm just going to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and drive the next 300 miles, and it's no problem. It isn't a problem on your 70-hour clock. It isn't. If you've got plenty of hours, and there's no worries. But it is a problem on your 14, because you started your 14-hour clock ticking 2 or 3 hours earlier than needed. So when you get unloaded, you don't have that much time left. And it takes time to go get another load and get it secured. And then a lot of these places, you can't park there, so you need some time left once you're tarped and secured to drive out of there and get to a parking spot. So if you don't plan it to maximize that 14 hours, what ends up happening is you run out of time that day you delivered. You don't have enough time to get another load, so you end up sitting for that night, and then the next day you get it, so you lost a whole day. So that's why the 14 hours is, to me, of vital importance to keep your wheels rolling and to make the most money that you possibly can make out here. It seems to be working. I know some of it is beyond my control because I don't pick the loads, but over the last 3 weeks, I've seen it working to my advantage. Is it going to work every single time? No, I'm sure it's not. I'm sure there's going to be times when I do everything right and I get unloaded early and I end up sitting because they don't have a load for me. But as long as I continue to keep that mentality and keep doing that, as far as maximizing that 14, giving me plenty of time after I'm unloaded, over the long course, it's going to help me a lot more than it'll hurt me. It's not going to hurt you, but I mean, most of the time it's going to work to your advantage. And it really seems like it has. Very simple concept. Like I said, most of you guys probably think, oh, duh, we know that. It's the first thing you learn. But I don't think everyone does. And for you guys that are just coming out new, learn about all your clocks. You got to manage your clock. You got to plan your trips. But the number one thing you got to pay attention to is that 14 hours the day you deliver, if you want to have a chance to get another load and keep it rolling. And when you can deliver in the morning and pick up that day and start getting down the road on your next load, you keep doing that. That's how you're going to maximize your miles, and that's how you're going to get the big paychecks. All right, that's it. Pretty simple stuff. Thanks for watching, everyone.